webinar where we are going to be focusing on church business meeting. Let me hasten to say that we are going to be also live streaming webinar where we so those of you focusing on church business meeting watch on YouTube. You can also follow us from there. Let me hasten to say that we are going to be so my name is Russell Kalisinja. I'm your host. With me is Melita Kazinge. She is also co-hosting with me. Let me introduce our speakers of the day, Dr. In Chijande and Pastor G. Warari. They are going to be speaking to us today. Let me also present to you the order of the day. Our meeting, we're going to have our presentation for about 45 minutes. Dr. Chishande is going to present to us. Then from there, we are going to have our question and answer section for 30 minutes. Then we are going to have closing remarks and registration section for 15 minutes from 2030 to 2045. Also, I would like to confirm that we are going to have certificates for the program that are going to be coming to us probably we will expect them from Wednesday going onwards. So we are going to send a link after the meeting that will require you to register. After registration, we'll then start processing your certificates upon completion of the webinar. So those of you who are not going to attend the whole webinar, you might miss the certificates because you would not have seen the link. So we are only going to send the link here on Zoom. We're not sharing it on Facebook. Once you get the link, you just put your information there, then we'll process your certificates. To start our meeting, we are going to ask Melita Kazinge to give us a word of prayer. Then we are going to read a verse, and Dr. Tijande will speak. So Melita Kazinge, may you please give us a word of prayer.
Shall we pray? So our Father in heaven, we want to thank you for the gift of life that you've given us. We would like to thank you for the program that is before us. May you help us. May you help the presenter and everyone is part of this program. May you also guide us through this. May you give us the spirit of understanding so that we hear what you want us to say. Amen.
Brother Russell? All right, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Am I clear? Please confirm if you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. So at this time, I'll have Innocent Chijande for our presentation. Kindly share your questions in the comment section during the presentation. It's your time, Mr. Chijande.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Pastor Chijande, you can take over.
All right, good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. You can confirm. Okay, so I would like to welcome you to our webinar where we are going to be looking at the policy. We have dubbed this program Policy Made Simple, and we are going to be looking at policy issues every last Friday of each month. This is our first one, and we're also going to be having several different presenters. We have experience in secretariat work. We have served the church in different capacities, and we are also going to be learning from these experts. And so today we are going to be focusing on business meetings. So for the next minutes, we are going to be focusing on issues to do with business meetings. When it comes to issues to do with business meetings, I'm sure it's actually one of the subjects that I think is a subject that I believe is very crucial in this church as we run, as we lead, and as we operate as churches. We need to really understand and to know better issues to do with business meetings. So we are going to be making use of some key policy books that I'm going to introduce to you. And so for our introduction, we are going to look at the handbook on page 78. It says the church in its broadest sense exists when people in the call of God, but God noticed that the first statement there is talking about we have a church because it's people that have been called individually this church because we individually responded to the call of God. So we did not come to church as a group. We did not come to church as a family. We did not come to church as couples. We are members of the church because individually God called us. So we now have what we call church because God called each one of us. And I also want us to take note of this important point that when we are in church, it is important that we behave, we act, we live, we practice as people who were individually called by God. In other words, it's quite important that each one of us knows why they are part of the church. So if I know I'm part of the church because God called me, it will not be easy for me to continue with my Christian walk no matter what happens. So it continues and says, but God does not call his people to isolation. So when God called people individually, they were not called to isolation. They were called to be part of a community. So it says he calls them to community. So we are called to a community called the church, and Hebrews 10:25 says, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together. So we are not supposed to stop assembling, and we are supposed to be operating and living as people who know we were not called to be isolated. So we are not just a clique. We are not like monks that live in isolation, but we are members of this community, the church. And in this mode of assembling together, the church as structure comes into existence. So we now have what we call church because people were individually called by God, but they were called to a community that is called the church. It goes on to say, for this to occur, it is natural and necessary that some form of agreed upon structure must and does occur. So you notice that in what we call church, there is a structure. It is actually an agreed upon structure. So as we operate as a church, we are a structure, and this structure is something that has been agreed upon at world level, at church level, and this is what we have in our church. And it goes on to say, in order to guide this structure, the Seventh-day Adventist denomination has established policies and procedures for the harmonious operation of the church as institution. So for the church to operate well, for this structure to be guided, the idea is, it is important that as I live in Zimbabwe, or if I find myself in China, if I find myself in Europe, if I find myself wherever in the world, the way this church operates, it should be the same. The policies that guide the church in Africa should be the same policies that are guiding the church elsewhere. The procedures that we make use of here in Africa should be the same procedures that are used the world over. So the idea is that because we have this agreed upon structure and we have these agreed upon policies and procedures, the way we run our churches, wherever you are, wherever we are, is supposed to be the same. So we are not supposed to be operating in approaches that more like say, here we do things this way. Or where we came from, or where I come from, we do things this way. But we should be quoting the primary publications. So it says here 3 primary publications address these procedures. So for the procedures that we use as a church, those procedures that should guide us and policies that should guide us, we find them in 3 primary publications address these procedures. Book number 1, it is the church manual. Book number 2, the General Conference Working Policy. You also may find the SID Working Policy. And the 3rd book is the Minister's Handbook. So we make use of 3 publications in this church to run the church, to guide the church. And these are very important publications that each church, each pastor is supposed to make use of. So as pastors, we are privy to our Minister's Handbook. That more like brings or bridges the gap as far as some information is concerned. So there is information that you will find in the church manual, but it is important for the church's operation. For example, it is called the church manual. It is not an elder's manual or a clerk's manual. It is a church manual because individually we belong to the church, and everyone who belongs to this particular church called the Seventh-day Adventist Church should own a church manual because it is meant for every church member. And we have the General Conference Working Policy, which is policies that this church uses. It's a very important book. We will share with you. For those that do not have, if you are interested, we can share with you the General Conference Working Policy, but we use the SID Working Policy. I'll explain why. Then finally, we have the Minister's Handbook, which is a book that the pastors are supposed to master, are supposed to know in order to guide the church. So these are the 3 primary publications that this church believes if we make use of, the way we do business, wherever we are, will be the same. Now, let's move on. If you read from the church manual, page 29, it talks of the organizational levels. So church as structure, we now have church as structure according to the quotation that I shared. It says here, there are several organizational levels within the church, leading from the individual believer to the worldwide organization. And they are as follows. We have the local church, then we have the local conference, then we have the union of churches, then we have the union conference, and finally we have the general conference and its divisions. So the division is not like a level as far as the organizational levels are concerned. And you also notice that the district here is not an organizational level because administratively, organizationally, we don't have a district. We have what we call districts because we have a district because there is a pastor who was allocated several churches that he is supposed to run. But as far as operation is concerned, we begin at local level, then we skip and jump to the local conference. So this is how this church is designed. So we have union of churches. In this side of the world, we don't have union of churches. We have union conferences. And this is several conferences making up a union. Union of churches, I'll refer you to the church manual. It explains what these are like. And it's basically a group of churches that have been approved by the GC to work as a union. So it's called a union of churches. Now, the church manual on the same page goes on to say, membership units in each of these levels that we have talked about periodically convene formal business sessions known as constituency meetings or sessions. Now, the constituency meeting or session of a local church is generally referred to as a business meeting. So this is basically leading us to our focus area, that is the business meeting for today. So look at this. Membership units in each of these levels. So we talked about the local conference. Local conferences hold or convene formal business sessions. They are called constituent meetings or sessions. Then you will notice that when it comes to the local church, which is the only one which is one that has a different name, it says here the constituent meeting or a session of a local church is referred to as a business meeting. So when we are holding sessions or constituent meetings at conference level, and we run those at union level, we run those at GC level, the way we run those is basically like what is expected at a local church. Let's go on. Now, if you visit the website of the NAD, that is North America Division, it was interesting to note that they say every unit of church organization, it is the local church, the local conference, union conference, general conference, and institutions, they conduct periodic business meetings to address important matters. The election of persons to leadership roles is one of those important matters. So you will notice that we conduct business meetings, but business meeting at local conference level, at union level, at GC level is called a session or a constituents meeting. At local church, it is called a business meeting. Now, you also notice that from page 134 of the church manual, the business meeting is the constituents meeting of the local church. So what we found on page 29 is actually exactly what is on page 134. They are speaking the same language, these quotations. So the business meeting is actually the constituents meeting of the local church. So what is happening here? Let me give an example. This is what happens. Every 3 years, we run what we call constituents meetings or sessions at conference level. That is the nearest we have. We recently had a constituents meeting. We had a session in November last year, and we are expecting another session at conference level as North Bio Conference in 2026. Let me give this illustration. Let's say it happens next year is 2025. We get into 2026 and we get into November, we get into December 2026, and we find ourselves in 2027. And it happens that there is no session announced. There is no constituency meeting that has been announced or for people to come and attend from the constituency. What will happen is my question. If people, or if we happen not to call a session and we find ourselves in 2027, this will happen. Officially, we will be operating unconstitutionally because our constitution says we are in office for exactly 3 years. So if it happens that 2026, we get into 2027 and there is no session called, it means we are operating unconstitutional or we are illegally in office. Whatever we are doing, we are doing it illegally. So I want to apply this to a local church. It says here, a local church is also supposed to have regular, or it's supposed to have business meetings before we even go to the regular aspect. You will notice that there are churches that may operate almost perpetually without conducting constituency meetings or local church business meetings. What will be happening there? It means that church, like a conference leadership that chooses not to a constituency meeting, these leaders are basically operating illegally. So whatever they are doing is illegal because the people that put them in office expect these business meetings to happen because they are important for the functioning of the church. So it goes on to say, members in regular standing are encouraged to attend and are entitled to vote. So all regular members are supposed to attend this important meeting. And it finally says, a member under censure has no right to participate by voice or by vote. This is a question that I've received from several people. They want to know whether a person on censure has a right to participate. True, according to the manual, a person under censure has no right to participate either by voice or by vote. So they cannot vote, they cannot speak during a regular during a business meeting, so to speak. Now, on the same page 134, business meetings should be announced a week or two in advance at the regular Sabbath worship with detail as to time and place. Listen to that first part. These business meetings are announced a week or two in advance. In other words, my title up there, my subheading there is notice period. So in other words, for it to be called a business meeting, it has to be announced minimum 7 days in advance or 2 weeks in advance. So before we even look at the contents, at the agenda of the meeting and the people in attendance, for it to be legally a business meeting, it can't be a business meeting properly announced, properly called, if it is called less than 7 days or less than 2 weeks, less than 7 days to 2 weeks in advance. So for it to be legally binding as a business meeting, a properly called, it needs at least a week in advance to be called. So if this doesn't happen, and we say during divine service, during announcements before divine service, and we say we are going to have a business meeting this afternoon, officially according to the policy book, this is the church manual on page 134, we are calling that, or we are running, or we are having a business meeting that has been illegally called. Why? Do you know, it may happen sometimes because there are people who you think are problematic during meetings and they don't cooperate, and maybe this Sabbath we discovered they did not come to church. That's when we decided to call a business meeting. That is not how things are supposed to go. The idea is when we run business meeting, we are saying everyone who is supposed to be a member of the business meeting, everyone who is a church member at is expected to attend. So if all regular members are expected to attend, it means we 7 days ahead of time for it to be officially a business meeting. So the elder chosen by the pastor, or in some cases, the conference president, who is designee, serves as chairperson of the business meeting. So who is the chair of the business meeting? According to the book, according to the manual, the pastor or an elder chosen by the pastor. So it's basically telling us that the official chair of the business meeting is the pastor. So without the pastor, no business meeting can run. And without the pastor assigning an elder, no business meeting can run. But in some cases, the conference president can come, or someone he has assigned, and chair a business meeting at your local church. Now, there are business meeting or business session types, according to page 134 of the church manual. It says here, major items should be decided at a regular or specially called business meetings. There are two issues that I want to highlight from this quotation. The first part is the one in red. We have two types of business meetings. We have a regular business meeting, then we have a specially called business meeting. These are two different ones. A regular one is the one that is according to our schedule. In other words, we are supposed to have a regular business meeting. So this is something that we know in advance, and it could be actually put on the calendar of the local church to say, we are going to have a business meeting as a church on our calendar. We are going to have one on that particular day. And a specially called business meeting is one that is special, that is in addition to the regular ones. Then the other idea that I want us to pick from this quotation is that major items should be decided at a business meeting, whether regular or especially called one. So this is what's happening. We have supposed to be decided at a business meeting. So according to the church manual, we have major items that can't be decided by the church board. We have major items that cannot be decided by any other subcommittee in the local church. So issues, these major items, deacons board, and it goes if it is a major item. So which are these major items? We are going to look at that. But we want to focus on the aspect of the regular and the specially called. So on page 138, how often should we run business meetings? So one of the work assignments of the board, this is the work of the board on page 138, it says, one of the assignments of the board is to encourage each department to report at least quarterly to the board and to members at business meetings or in Sabbath meetings in regards to spiritual nature and evangelism. So this is what is expected of a functional board. So if our church board is functional, if our board is doing its duty, one of the assignments, one of the things it should ensure happens is to make sure each department of the local church reports at least quarterly. It means that's the minimum. So if a department has reported less, it should be once every quarter. So in other words, if our church is running properly, if our churches are running as Adventist churches, they are supposed to have business meetings every quarter. So officially, according to the book, according to the policy book, we are supposed to have quarter business meetings minimum once a quarter. And also, all departments are expected to report to the business meeting once every quarter. So if they fail to do that, it means we have failed our mandate as the local church board. So each church board that is functional, it should ensure we have a functional church. And how do we make our church function well? It's supposed to ensure every leader in each and every department has an opportunity to share, to present their report to the business meeting once every quarter. Then it goes on to say, on page 189, these are examples of reports. I just picked a few. So, for example, on page 189, it says the clerk's report. We are talking of the clerk's report. It says here, a report from the clerk should showing the present membership of the church and the number of members received and those transferred to other churches. Note also should be made giving the number, but not necessarily the names of those who were removed from fellowship during the year, as well as those who have died. A brief statement of the decisions of the church board in its meetings may interest members. So this is what should happen. A church clerk should report at least once a quarter to the church all these issues. So as far as our membership is concerned, how many are we now? How many did we receive last quarter, this quarter? How many did we transfer out or in? And we should also indicate those we removed from membership. We should also indicate we lost 1 or 2 or 3 members this previous quarter. And we should also talk of some of the decisions that the church board managed to make. So the idea is a clerk is supposed to report once every quarter before the church. So the idea is every department, so meaning all departments, according to the quotation we read, all departments are supposed to report to the church quarterly. I'm imagining seeing the first elder standing there to report that as elders, we managed to visit every house in our territory. We have visited all members, and we have prayed with them, and we managed to attend all funerals, and we managed to go and bury all those died, and we have done our best as far as their responsibilities are concerned, as far as their job description is concerned. They are basically presenting what they did and also presenting what they might have failed to accomplish, and the church, like we do during sessions. During sessions, we do that a lot. When we send our delegates, all those that have been delegates to sessions, to conference sessions, we have time to give feedback, to ask questions, to clarify, to seek clarity on the report that has been presented normally by the president of the conference. So the same should happen at the local church. We present, we share what we did, and after that, we get feedback and clarity. The idea here is we are not supposed to wait for the end of the year for us to remove a member, because normally we say this department leader is failing, therefore we'll wait for the end of the year to remove them. Why don't we instead of waiting for the end of year to remove members, to remove a director from office, why don't we assist them through business meetings to say, you seem to be struggling. Can't we give you somebody to assist you? Can't we give you some form of support? What help do you need for you to achieve? Or when they present, they can then say, we are having a challenge with that or that. And when they share their problems, when they share their challenges, the church can actually resolve and find solutions to their challenges. So the concept and idea of having business meetings is that we make use of business meetings to ensure the church functions. So no department should actually be dead, should actually be non-functional, because we have business meetings to ensure every department is functioning well. Through the meetings that we have, when we review, we'll discover there is a department that seems not to have a leader, yet we elected somebody last year. When we discover that, we can make use of the department of the business meeting to either replace, in case somebody has moved away, in case somebody is no longer in the area, they have transferred. We make use of that opportunity to make replacements, to make corrections, and to ensure we align every department to the dreams, to the plans, to the vision that we have as a local church. So you also notice that personal ministries is supposed to report in this way. A report from the personal ministries leader giving a statement of outreach or missionary activities, including community services activities, together with plans for future work. This should be followed by a report from the personal ministry secretary. So listen, the leader has a different report from the secretary. So if you read the personal ministries subsequent personal ministries handbook, it will tell you the job descriptions of each and every one of these. So because of that, based on that, each one of them has an assignment and they report exactly on that. So then we move to the treasurer's report. This is what is expected of a treasurer. A report from the treasurer showing the amount of tithe received and sent to the conference, a statement of missionary offerings received and forwarded, and a statement showing local church funds received and disbursed. So what is happening here is the treasurer is actually giving feedback to the church. They can also even add the number of members participating in tithe, the number of members participating in offerings, the number of members participating or giving tithe in kind, etc. This is information that the church, we give this feedback, we give this information. It's important for the proper functioning of the local church. Then these are major items. Remember, we said major items are decided during a business meeting. So So when we run business meetings, this is what is expected. We vote or we make decisions on major items. These are the examples of major items according to my research, according to my study of the church manual. Number one, we have membership issues. If you read the church manual on page 43 to 70, or page 43 and 70, we have it talks about membership issues and how the church business meeting comes into play. So the church business meeting has the ultimate right to decide on membership, whether we are voting in or voting out a member to transfer in or out. It is our responsibility as a business meeting to make decisions on such. Then number two, we have discipline issues. So as far as discipline issues are concerned, according to page 42 and page 70, we can't make a decision to discipline somebody without taking it to the business meeting. The same applies to programming issues. The church manual on page 134, it talks about plans. I'll quote the text later. I'll give you the quotation later. It talks about what is expected of us as leadership. We are supposed to plan and take the plans to the business meeting for voting. Finance and budgeting issues are also only voted and approved by the business meeting according to page 145. And as far as election into office is concerned, page 77 and 78, no one person can be a member of a board. They find themselves in an office without it being voted at a business meeting. And finally, reports and evaluation of work, page 134 that we just read, you find that we are supposed to present to the business meeting our plans, our work, what we did, and after that, we get feedback from the church. And after that is done, we find that we have an opportunity to refine our act. Now, according to the Minister's Handbook, I'm quoting the Minister's Handbook now. On page 158, it says, only church business meeting, only a church business meeting is authorized to make final discipline decisions. So when it comes to discipline, no one else or no other committee can discipline a member if it is not done ultimately by the business meeting. So the business meeting has the final say as far as discipline issues is concerned. Disciplinary issues are concerned. Then on the same page, it also says, in a business meeting, members have a right to ask detailed questions. Usually, however, they will allow embarrassing details to remain with a smaller group, such as the church elders or the church board. The pastor should not be alone in knowing the full details of the disciplinary issues. So this is a guide to the pastor. Remember, this is a book that is used to guide the pastor in running the church, in leading the church. So it says here, when we are in a business meeting, members have a right to ask detailed questions, and they have a right to do that. And when they do that, answers are supposed to be provided. But remember, there are unnecessary, embarrassing details that we may not need to know as the rest of the church. Now, on page 104 of the Minister's Handbook, it says, in addition, votes on membership issues are frequently processed during the Sabbath worship service. Now, I want you to take note of this. Someone might have asking, so if we need to announce 7 days ahead or 14 days ahead that we have a business meeting, yet we have to deal with a major item called membership, transfer in or transfer out. This is the guidance that we get from the Minister's Handbook. It says, when we vote membership issues, they don't necessarily need us to announce in advance. It remains an action that is as good as a business meeting. So there's an exception on votes on membership issues, especially because, remember, these membership transfers in or out, they are not timed. They just come whenever they come. And for that reason, it is important that we take note of this. This is an exception as far as this major item is an exception as far as business meetings are concerned. So the rest of the issues, they may need us to announce ahead of time and allow people to know and also to attend. But with membership issues, we can just vote them during the Sabbath worship hours, as we normally do, just before divine service. On page 134, it says, the business meeting agenda should include reports about the work of the church. At least once a year, the agenda should include reports covering church activities. And based on those reports, a proposed plan of action for the next year, including an annual budget, should be presented for approval. Listen to this now. This is a major item. Based on those reports, board members have reported, maybe it's towards the end of the year, and they've reported on their work from January, maybe to October or November. And when we do that, based on those reports, a proposed plan of action for the next year, including an annual budget, should be presented for approval. So we have things that are supposed to be presented for the approval of the business meeting. One, it is a proposed plan of action. Remember, so based on reports that have been presented, we can actually come up with plans to propose to the church to say, next year, we discovered that the leaders of this year have done such and such programs. And based on the reports that they gave us, we want to build on what they did. And we are proposing, or we are discussing as a business meeting, issues or plans or programs or activities that we want to take to do in the coming year. And remember, take note of this. It is actually telling us that we don't plan for the year that during that particular year. We plan a year in advance. So when we are in 2024, like now, we are supposed to be planning this year for next year. So before the year turns to become 2025, we should have a plan for January 2025 up to the end of the year. And it should also include an annual budget. So these things are voted during a business meeting. So we also vote an annual budget. It also tells me this. When we present a plan for the next year, there is no way you can come up with a budget for the next year if you don't have a detailed plan for the year. For example, you can't come up with a budget for the whole year if you don't have preachers lined up for the year. You need to know how many preachers are you going to be inviting and how many are going to be local. So you need to come up with a budget based on that. You need to know how many singing groups that you're going to be inviting and what is the expense. You need to know when you are going to be taking the whole church for an outing so that you can actually budget accordingly. So based on that, we are supposed to have this year 2024, we are supposed to have planned before the year end. We should actually get our plan voted, that is our calendar voted. Then we also vote our annual budget. So according to this, we don't budget, sorry, we don't plan quarterly. We don't plan for the halfway of the year. We plan annually, because you can't come up with an annual budget when you don't have an annual calendar or an annual plan. So these are supposed to be voted, these two items, before the year turns. So in other words, elections are supposed to be done ahead of time so that people may have time to plan for the coming year before the year turns. So though that's an extra point that I thought I could share. Then according to the Minister's Handbook on page 147, it says the budget should be voted at a business meeting at which all members have the opportunity to express their views and accept ownership of the plan. So listen to this. This is how we do business in church, in this church. No budget should be implemented before it is presented to all members so that they may share their views and accept and have ownership. Then it also says on page 145, the budget should be presented to the church for its study and adoption, and for plans to assure that funds shall be provided to balance the budget during the coming year. So this is, listen to the emphasis, during the coming year. So we are planning this side of the year for the coming year. So it has to be presented to the church, and the church has to study and adopt it. This is according to the church manual. So these are major items. So on page 91, reports of all funds received and disbursed should be presented at the regular business meetings of the church. A copy of these reports should be given to the leading officer. So when we have used funds, so the treasurer is supposed to report funds received and funds disbursed each and every quarter, because this is during the regular business meeting, and regular business meetings happen once every quarter. Then the spirit of prophecy here says, in counseling for the advancement of the work, no one man is to be a controlling power, a voice for the whole. Proposed methods and plans are to be carefully considered so that all the brethren may weigh their relative merits and decide which should be followed. These are going to be the testimonies, volume 7, page 259. So this is basically telling us, it's emphasizing the importance of sharing with the brethren the methods, sharing with all the brethren the plans. All members should actually be involved when we plan, when we come up with methods, get their input. Then when we do that, we are running the church the Adventist way. We are running the church the way God expects us to run the church. And no one person is supposed to decide for the whole church. No one person is supposed to be controlling the whole church. This is unlike the plan that God has for this particular church. So when we do business, we are supposed to make sure we do it in that way. Then, according to, sorry, this is not according to Ellen White, but it's according to the Minister's Handbook on page 104. It says, all of us together are wiser than any one of us alone. All of us together are wiser than any one of us alone. That is Minister's Handbook on page 104. So we are wiser when we do things together. So the idea is, when we do things alone, you are not as wise as the whole. And some people, because they've been elected into office, they think that they are wise because they are in office. But according to this statement, we are wiser together. So we are wiser because we are doing things together. So those that do things in others are wiser than those that choose to do things alone. In conclusion, I'll make use of the spirit of prophecy. It says, let those who attend committee meetings remember that they are meeting with God, who has given them their work. Let them come together with reverence and consecration of heart. They meet to consider important matters connected with the Lord's cause. In every particular, their actions are to show that they are desirous of understanding His will in regard to the plans to be laid for the advancement of His work. Let them not waste a moment in unimportant conversation, for the Lord's business should be conducted in a businesslike, perfect way. If some member of a committee is careless and irreverent, let him be reminded that he is in the presence of a witness by whom all actions are weighed. Testimonies, volume 7, page 256, paragraph 1. May God bless you. May God lead you as we go back to our churches, as we try by all means to ensure things are done well, church business is done well because we are making use of business meetings to ensure we are on course, to ensure we are aligned, to ensure we are doing things right as God leads. And when we meet in these business meetings, let's uphold a Christian spirit to ensure God leads us. We are in the presence of God, and may God bless us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chishande, for your presentation. At this point in time, I would like to invite you to our question and answer section. Please feel free to type in your questions in the chat. We have opened the chat so that you can type your questions there. We'll pick one question at a time, and Dr. Chishande will respond to it. In case any question that would have missed, we'll pick it up and then try to address it in the next webinar that we are going to have. So Melita Kazinge is going to read out the questions, and the doctor will respond to that. Melita, can you hear me?
Okay. Does the Federation serve? Can you hear me, Russell?
Yes. The first question was, what purpose does the
All right. The
Federation serve?
first question says, what purpose does the Federation serve?
All right, come again. Or we are two of us.
Okay, the first question says, what purpose does the Federation serve?
Okay. We
Okay,
have.
it's fine.
All right, thank you. I have my counterpart here on the question and answer section. Pastor Warari, are you there?
I'm sure Pastor Warari has not joined yet.
Okay, that's fine.
So you might be all alone there.
All right, that's fine. The question is, what purpose does the Federation serve? Did I get the question right?
Yes, that's the question, sir.
Yes.
That's fine. Thank you. Let me just highlight. I'm sure the person who is asking got it clear when we were talking about the organizational structure of the church. By the way, we officially we have the local church, like we said. We also have the local conference. So between the local church, we find ourselves here in Zimbabwe, here in our conference. We find ourselves with a district. We find ourselves with what we now call federations. And you also appreciate that the district, like we said, the local district or the districts that we have, they are there because of the local pastor. In other territories, in other places, you find here in Africa, we have pastors that are in charge of one particular church, just one church. And because of our setup here in our conference, as an example, almost, I can safely say, all of our pastors have more than one congregation. and some have as many as 24 churches, not counting or including companies. So you will notice that because of that, we find ourselves also with a district pastor. If you read reading from the minister's handbook, it also talks of the district pastor, and it's actually a unique setting because you notice when you read the church manual, it doesn't address a district per se. It talks to the local church. And when we move over to Africa, in reality, we find ourselves with pastors with districts. So we have a district because we have district pastors. The pastor has been assigned several churches. So the same applies. You find the concept of federation comes in, or we have it because normally from the youth department, we find ourselves with federations. We also have federations for women, federations for AMO, etc. So the federation comes into play because we have activities that we would like to do at inter-district level. And it's also very important that we interact with other districts. We share notes, we cross-pollinate with other districts. So for operation purposes, for structure purposes, we find ourselves with districts, we find ourselves with federations, and these basically assist us in operations. They assist us in running our churches in a smoother way. So for some activities, it will be prudent that we interrelate, we integrate and meet and cross-pollinate. I actually discovered that when we were in some country, I was actually shocked to know of a conference, say, that had about 4,000 people, members. And to us here, it was more like 1, 2, 3 districts at most. So you find that it's the setup that we have here with members, as many as we have, we find ourselves with federations that will help us to run our territories and to run our programs, to interact with other territories, with other districts through the setup called a federation. I think I have given a long response to that.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Chijande. Then another question says here, our head elder says that the local church does not need an executive of officers, meaning his elder, treasurer, church clerk is of the persuasion the elders board is supreme. In this regard, our church's business meetings at the behest of the head elder. Kindly address this one.
Okay. Thank you. Pastor Orari, I think you can help me on that one. I discovered he's here. Pastor Orari?
Pastor Warari?
I'm not seeing him. I'm not seeing him on the participants list.
No, he's using my account.
Okay, let me look for him.
I think it's muted.
It's written Innocent Chijande. So maybe he might be failing to unlock, unmute.
Unmute. Okay.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
Pastor Warari, welcome.
I've been asking for you to unmute me for years and years. You were not unmuting me.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry,
that's
Pastor,
fine.
we have seen
I raised my hand.
Dr. Chijandi.
Okay, I was raising my hand and nothing was happening, so that's okay. So the question is on the
All right,
elder.
I'll read it again, the question.
I heard it.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard it. It's like this one has to have a personal, maybe, discussion with Dr. Chijande to visit the church, because it's like they are refusing the authority of the executive, that is, the first elder, the church clerk, and the treasurer, that they can discuss issues and then send them to the elders board, and then the elders board recommends issues to the board or whatever. That procedure is what is missing in that church. Normally, such elders feel that the church clerk could be a woman or the treasurer could be a woman, and most elders then would say we can't have women deal on issues before us, before we see them. So hence, they want to have the elders board and not have these other officers in. So it needs one-on-one with the office, with the conference office for that question. Is it clear?
Chijande?
Maybe go to the next question while Dr. Chijande comes back.
Okay. So the next question is saying, is it mandatory that the church board meeting minutes should be read to the church after every sitting? And is that meeting also recognized as a church business meeting?
As has been highlighted by Dr. Chijande, especially on note 189, page 189 of the church manual, it says that not all issues of the church board are to be discussed in the business meeting. We can go back to that chapter or to that page, which is page 189 of the church manual. That's on notes. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes, loud and clear, Pastor.
It's not clear.
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay. It says here that the business meeting shall be held at least once a year. Yet the same church manual says the church board shall be held monthly. So that being the case, that the business meeting can be held at least once a year, that means many issues that are discussed by the church board don't have to go to the business meeting, except those which Dr. Chijande mentioned, that these are on a specially called business meetings with issues that are very, very critical. That's when the business meeting is to be called. And he highlighted the important issues like church budget, like discipline. I think you remember that. That's how we can answer that question.
Okay, thank you, Pastor. Then we move to the next question. Okay, this one says, I had a follow-up question on the discipline of members. We had a member who was once disfellowshipped on the strength of a letter he was drafted and assisted to write that placed him in compromised status. An emergency church board and a business meeting comprised of mainly church board members was conducted. And disfellowshipment happened. Then 2 years later, member was reaccepted into fellowship based on the letter from relatives of the lady. Thus, may you advise on the due process oversight.
Is that a question or is just stating what happened?
They are saying it's a follow-up question on the discipline of members.
Yeah, I think it was highlighted that any business meeting that is held without announcing it for 2 weeks or 1 full week is what? He says it's an illegal meeting. It's illegitimate. We can't take that as a business meeting which was held without announcing it for 7 days or for 14 days. That's what the church manual said. So all those procedures which were skipped, which were not done, were non-compliance of the policy.
Okay, I'm picking someone saying Pastor Warari, so something was not clear on your last remark concerning the concerning your last the previous question. Would you
Which
like
was
to come
on what?
again with that, Pastor Warari?
Yes, on which point?
Yeah, they may need to take it again. Maybe they may need to rewrite and clarify which particular question was not clear.
Okay, that's fine. Let's do with this one. Let me read this one. So while we ask the person to rewrite the question as well. Is it mandatory that church board meeting minutes should be read to the church after every sitting? And is that meeting also recognized as a church business meeting? I hope you got that.
Yeah, I think that one has been attended to. That question has been responded to already.
Okay. All right, let me give out another question. This one says, kindly reference the executive in the church manual or any other manuals. Kindly reference the executive in the church manual or any of the other manuals.
Okay, that's all right. So
okay, thank you so much.
If you go to page 92 of the manual, it's subheading there is departments and other organizations. Paragraph 2 says the most important elements of structure and organization are the officers. See page 77 to 91 and the departments and other organizations. So in our church, we have church officers. So the local church, this is from the church manual, page 92. So the local church has officers. Maybe the question is asking about executive, but the church, the church manual speaks to officers of the church, And the officers are those ones that Pastor Warari highlighted, that they are this nucleus of the local church board that will share information with the church board, also with the elders board or board of elders, though these could be agenda items or other issues for the deliberation. So basically, the officers are actually there in the manual. Though in other circles, in other churches, they call them executive.
And maybe Dr. Chijande, it will suffice as well to add what you,
Yes.
page that you refer to, page 77.
Yes.
Which says the term of office for officers of both the church and its auxiliary organizations shall be 1 year.
Correct.
So it's making clear that they are officers and then auxiliary organizations, which are the Dockers, the whatever, those are other organizations that are to assist in the work of the church. Auxiliary means assisting in the work of the church.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question says, since we are dealing with major items and critical issues, what is the ideal quorum of the meeting so that we will not have members that meet without the knowledge of others and make decisions that will affect the whole church?
Pastor Orar, can you take that one?
Yes, if you go to page 134, paragraph 2, line 7 or 8, line 8, it says each church decides what the quorum will be for future meetings. So the first business meeting that the church holds, which will be to accept the new officers and the new departmental heads as the year begins. That's the board or the business meeting that elects or chooses the quorum that they would want to constitute a group that can vote in a business meeting. So once the quorum is agreed upon and the quorum is present, the meeting can go ahead. And yet in some instances, whereby the quorum is there or even more than the quorum, when the meeting begins, when the meeting goes into the discussions and some feel that it's too long, they leave the meeting. And a few people remain and they vote. Their vote holds because the meeting started constitutionally with the quorum or with the number of attendance. I don't know if you can add on that, Doctor.
Okay, I think it's in order. I'm sure with the reference that you used, page 134, because as far as quorum is concerned, it's crucial that the church agrees on that particular quorum ahead of time. So it's actually talking of future meetings. It means we do it ahead of time. We won't think of the quorum when we already are in a business meeting. So we don't need to discuss this when you're in a business meeting. So it may actually be safer when we elect a new committee, when you elect a new leadership during elections, then we agree to vote and agree to say, in our future meetings, we have our quorum will be this number, so that when you have the meeting, you won't be compromised as far as the quorum is concerned, because sometimes you may end up coming up with a quorum on the day, which will be actually the number that is already there. And so we won't be conflicted if we do it when we are maybe during election time, when we are voting for the next year. We are in a safe space. We are focused on the work. we are not an issue. So it will be the best time to come up with a quorum, to agree on a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Any other contribution?
Maybe
All right.
any other question? Is there?
The other question says, pastors, please kindly brief a rundown of how the business meeting is conducted from the song down to the last prayer, if it follows that program.
Pastor Orari, can you take us through that one?
I think it would run in the similar way as we run church boards, like we have the chairperson calling the meeting to order. Then we have a devotion. If it's not the first church business meeting, we have the previous minutes read. We have the affirmation of the mission statement. And then the chairperson will call upon the secretary to say out the next item, which will be the items on the agenda of that day. And then the secretary brings up the items one by one. They are discussed or recommended to the church business meeting from the church board, and then they are discussed, and then they are voted. If there be a question that may lead to what you read, Dr. Chijande, from page 158 of the minister's manual, which may be of embarrassing nature to someone, then the church, the minister's handbook says only a few officers will be privy to the information that is detailed. That is, if a person raises a hand in a business meeting and wants to talk on an issue that could be embarrassing to someone or defamation of character, they may ask the person who would want to say those embarrassing statements or whatever to excuse the house, so that they go into another room or breakaway room, and then the person says his story or her story, and then the chairperson hears it and comes back to report to the board, not in an embarrassing way, but in a well-toned way for everyone to accept and also for the member to be protected. Then when that is done, a vote is taken. A consensus is normally what holds water in all business meeting according to rules of order, which we have adopted from Henry Robert, who wrote about these rules of order in 1876. They have been in practice. This is what we give at every constituents meeting, even in Mazoe. I think every church received the rules of order that we follow as a church. So those rules of order can also give us how we can run our business meeting or church boards step by step. And then after we have discussed everything, and then we have voted on the final item, then we could have a closing prayer and then adjourn. When we adjourn, we don't have any other business. We rise up to pray and we walk away. We don't remain in the room. The moment we remain in the room discussing other issues, there's a temptation to go back to the items and pour water maybe on some very serious decisions, or start arguing on issues that someone lost in a vote. So when we say adjournment, we leave the place, we move away. That's very important. Maybe together with that, there's a slide that you showed, Dr. Chijande, I think it was in conclusion, which was saying, when we run these meetings, we are running, God is in the meeting. Now, I would want to talk about dressing at such a time when we are in these board meetings and business meetings. I have seen some people come in t-shirts, that's men, some in jeans, some in sandals, some like they are going to kunofudza mombe. I think it doesn't give the dignity of God's business. This is God's business. When I am marrying a couple, even wherever under a tree, they are supposed to be formally dressed. Right now, if anyone goes to apply for a license to marry, just to go to Rotten Row for a reception, just to apply, they have to be in formal dressing. How much more before God? So that our behavior resonates with the type of business that we are carrying out. If I'm in a jean, in a t-shirt, very easy for me to pull up my sleeves and to fight. But in a suit, it may not be so easy. That's the contribution I wanted to give on the order of the meeting.
Thank you so much
Okay,
for that
Pastor.
response, Pastor Warari. So the question that the other participant had said it's not clear. It says, is it mandatory that the church board meeting minutes should be read to the church after every sitting? And is that meeting also recognized as a church business meeting? No clear answer was given. Is it recognized as a business meeting? If not, what name is it given? So I think the question is speaking to the scenario where we had a board meeting, then the next Sabbath, the church clerk and the elder comes to the church and say, last week we had a board meeting. These are the minutes of the business of the board meeting. After reading, they say, we now want to vote. Is it a business meeting or what name is it given to? Over to you, pastors.
Okay. Let's bring it to context. We are talking about business meeting. So in the context of business meetings, number one, may this be clear. If it's not announced ahead of time, that is 7 days or 14 days in advance, it is not a business meeting. Number two, business meetings deal with major items that we highlighted, not just every other issue. You will notice that there are issues that are not supposed to be taken to business meeting, and those that are meant for the business meeting are supposed to be tackled by the business meeting. So, number one, if we take issues that are not for business meeting to the business to the church, it doesn't become a business meeting because we've just gathered the church. And secondly, it is also prudent that we know that if we don't follow these guidelines, we are not running a business. So officially, it is not a business meeting. The question that was part of that question was that, so what do we call it? I don't know what it is called, and I don't know what we may call it, because officially it is not a business meeting. So if it's not attending to major issues, and if it is not announced 7 days earlier, then it can't be called a business meeting. So maybe we are basically, I remember attending one where some were saying we are reading the church board minutes, but we are not supposed to read all of them as we normally do, or as some do, because we are supposed to call a business meeting a regular one to attend to these key issues, or maybe a specially called one. So in terms of what it is called, unfortunately, it might not have a name as far as the context of this discussion is concerned.
And maybe to add to that, to make it very clear on the issue that are all discussions of the church board to be taken to the business meeting, let me read where I read when I refer to this question, that's page 189. Page 189, it says, a brief, this is business meeting, a brief statement of the decisions of the church board in its meetings may interest members. Did you hear that statement? It says a brief statement of the decisions of the church board in its meetings may. If it says may, it's not must. It may interest members. If you would want to read some brief statements and decisions that were made by the church board to the business meeting, it may interest members, or you may leave it. That's the statement that says it's not everything that has been discussed in the church board that goes to the business meeting.
Thank you so much, pastors, for that response. Let's move on to the next question. The next question says, may you clarify on the operations of the executive and the board of elders? May you clarify on the operations of the executive and the board of elders?
Okay, let's just keep in context. I think we have a long way to go as we will cover these topics and subjects. So I think that one is actually a subject that we'll have to tackle separately, so that this flow from office, where does it come from? Where is it? The next level, we go to the board of elders. So this relationship between the officers, the board of elders, the church board, and the business meeting, I think important, maybe in relation also to other auxiliary committees, it may be crucial that we have a presentation specifically that will cover that. So I think Pastor Warare, I hope we agree on this one. I think so that it may also assist us so that we are clear on this particular subject. So allow us to make it one of our topics.
Yes, maybe for the questioner may feel like the pastors didn't have answers to this. Let me just give a simple example of how complicated it may be if an issue begins with the elders board and it goes to the church board. It is when the elders meet and they want to employ a janitor, they don't consult the church clerk for the contract and the laws of labor laws. They don't contact the church treasurer to see if funds are available. The elders board meets and it agrees, takes to the church board and they agree. Without the church treasurer and the church clerk, that thing will not succeed, because the contract is needed. And the one who should draft the contract is the church clerk. She or he is the person who knows the rules and the laws of it. Normally, like in some churches, they pick a lawyer to be a church clerk, which is in tandem with the work that is there. And accountants and financiers are normally chosen to be treasurers. So if you elect or you decide to employ a janitor without informing the treasurer, at the end of the month, the treasurer says, our collections only amount to $50 a week. Yet you've employed a janitor who needs $150. So you have to revoke that decision, which has gone to the church board, without consulting the church treasurer. So if the first elder receives a request from the deacons that we want to employ a janitor because our church needs this and this and this, then the first elder takes this item to the officers, the church clerk and the treasurer. They discuss it. They say, it's okay. Money is there. We can employ. It goes to the elders board. They discuss. Then it goes to the board. No problem. But whichever way, the elders board first, and then to the officers, and then to the board. No problem. But we are saying these two people are not supposed to be left behind. That's the treasurer and the church clerk. They are very critical in the running of any issue of the church. That's briefly, though we will handle it deep in a deeper way next time.
Thank you so much for clarifying that one. Please, let's take note that we have put the link for registration in the chat. Everyone is supposed to register their attendance and also put in details for certification. You'll get a certificate of attendance once we get your details. So let's make sure that before we drop from this meeting, we then leave our details on that form that we have put. We just click on the link. For the benefit of those who are using one computer to watch the webinar, maybe on YouTube, you need to fill in the forms twice. You fill in for the first person, then you fill in for the second person. If you are 3 or more, you just have to do it twice or thrice. So let's make sure that we leave our details there. We have also put the link on our YouTube platform, that is NZC Media. Let's also, those who are following on YouTube, let's also leave our details there. We are moving on to our next question. Is there an emergency business meeting? Pastor Warari and Pastor Chijande, is there an emergency business meeting?
Okay. Maybe it's just a matter of terminology. When I was presenting, we spoke of two types. So maybe we may just need to align to the terms that we find in the church manual. The church manual talks of a regular business meeting. Then it talks of a specially called business meeting / emergency business meeting. So it's an emergency because it's not the regular one. So if we are having one every quarter, it means the specially called one is that one that is coming between the previous regular and the next regular. So if we had one in March and we were planning to have the next one, the next quarter, maybe end of June, we are saying if we have one between these, it's a specially called business meeting. So that's more of an emergency business meeting if we use the term that has been used there.
All right. Any addition, Pastor Warari?
I concur with what Pastor Chijande said.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that one. Melita, do you have any pending questions from your end?
No. We can proceed, Russell.
All right, thank you so much. If we have no questions, we let's it leads us to the end of our webinar today.
Maybe Brother Kazeke?
Please let's make sure that we put all our details on the link so that you can receive your certificates after processing. Let me also say we have a channel that we post updates, secretariat updates that we on WhatsApp. So I'm also posting the link to our Secretariat WhatsApp channel where you follow links. We will be posting more of these. We have a weekly post that we will be putting on our WhatsApp channel. The policy in 60 a 60-second video which explains more of these policies. And to accompany it, we also share a PDF document that goes with it. So let's follow our North Zimbabwe Conference Secretariat channel on WhatsApp, where we'll be able to receive information and updates there. I will leave this time to Dr. Chijande for closing remarks. Whilst maybe before that, Melita, you'd want to come in and greet people. May you please kindly do so.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm seeing Tapiwa Yafele. I'm seeing Itai Chimwala, Makanzi Nkomo, Bob Guja, Fungisisai George Nyaire. Thank you so much, guys, for following this webinar and the presentation. There's Tapiwa Zinyemba. I can see that one. There's Fanu Mtema, Tondere Paspami. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much. Next time it will be good if you highlight where you are following from so that we know where you are and we proceed together. Dr. Warari, you wanted to say something before?
Yeah, though not yet, Doctor. I wanted to say
Dr.
that
Warari?
well done to Dr. Chijande for this initiative, for it really informs the church on how we are to run. May I request all those who will be attending that we may enter into these meetings not with preconceived ideas and standpoints, whereby we argue with maybe what the 3 authoritative documents we had would have said, but to have an open mind as we enter into these discussions and to desire to learn and to adapt to new information to some of us. It may not be new in the church, but it may be new to some of us. So let's be open-minded. Let's accept. Let's not stick to what we knew before and say we've always been doing it this way. That was my point. Otherwise, I want to say well done to Dr. Chijande for the initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Chijande?
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for coming, for attending. I just want to say, let's keep on keeping on learning. Like what Pastor Warari said, we really need to learn. And whenever I sit down to study these 3 documents that we that guide us as our policy documents, I always find something new. I have read the manual for many years, but I still find some new stuff almost every day when I sit down to study. So let's be open-minded. Let's be open to learning. And also, I would like to say we are going to be sharing the presentations. I will make a PDF. I will try share through the pastors. It's unfortunate I could not make it ready right now, but we will find a way to quickly share with every one of us through our pastors, and also we'll find other means also through our church clerks. I'm sure they are going to ensure we get them. Then secondly, I'm sure there are others that might not be local. You might do well to just highlight to our hosts, in case maybe you are too far from our conference, that maybe we may find a way, or maybe we can just make use, Brother Kalisinja, make use of all the emails that you receive, email addresses, to just share the presentation. Is it? I'm sure
I think it's the much easier way.
Thank you.
When we send the certificates, we also send with the accompanying document as well.
I think that's the best. That's the best. Thank you so much. I'm seeing Brother Godfrey Tindi. This one should be in Maputo. Are you fine? He's muted. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We are also going to be, someone has requested for the rules of order. So maybe we will also, maybe Brother Kalisinja will share the rules of order. We'll share the presentation. We'll share the church manual soft copy. We'll also share the latest SID working policy for our benefit. So I think, thank you so much for everything. I hand over to you, Brother Kalisinja.
All right, thank you so much for joining in, for your patience, as we have come to the end of our webinar. I would also want to thank all of you for taking part in it. May God richly bless you, and allow me to say happy Sabbath from wherever you are. We are now in the holy hours, and may we be granted a peaceful and restful night. We are going to have our closing prayer from from Pastor Warari. As we close, we are going to stay online for at least 10 minutes so that everyone can see the link and register for certification. Once the 10 minutes has lapsed, we'll automatically close the meeting. We'll then begin to process your certificates, and you start receiving these certificates from Wednesday. If you get them a bit later, please bear with us. I've seen we had at least 90 people in attendance, so it might take time to process them. But if you left your information on the Google form, you are going to get your certificate. Thank you so much. We have a closing prayer from Pastor Warari.
Let us pray. Father, I want to thank you so much for the meeting that went on so well. We want to thank you for the presentation that Dr. Chijande has provided. And also want to thank you for the shepherds that have been in the meetings. We saw the likes of Dr. Zinyamba, we saw Pastor Fumo and Pastor Mbiriri and many other pastors who may not have seen, but we want to thank you, Lord, for their taking part in this very important program, praying that you may guide us until we have exhausted most of these police issues, and that we may understand how you would want your church to run. Bless the hosts and bless them in whatever they do. Thanking you so much for the holy hours of the Sabbath. And as we prepare to worship you tomorrow, be with us throughout the day and see us through to the throne of grace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. We are going to have our next webinar, as Pastor Chijande had mentioned, on the 26th of July, 2024, same time here on Zoom. So everyone, let's keep alert. We are going to share a registration link as soon as our team has created that. So we'll share it in due course. Let's keep watch of the next meeting and join. From myself and the team, would like to thank you and good night.
Good night to everyone.
Night,
happy Sabbath.
everyone. Happy day. Someone has a hand up. Talk more, Murima. Maybe you may assist them.
Talk more, your hand is up.
It's a response for the good night.
All right.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Ngoto pedzana.